All right, coast is clear. Hey guys, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. It's Lauren here, and today we are going to be flipping this antique dresser by using Easy Off oven cleaner to strip back the surface. Don't tell Neiman that I've got the oven cleaner. We need to get this project going before he finds out. Let's do it. This is my first time trying this out. One reason why I wanted to try it on this specific piece is because this is solid wood. The veneer, it's a thin layer of veneer, and so this area right here is gonna be very hard to do with a sander. It's not gonna be able to get inside of each one of those, but I thought this would look really good stripped down. So that's why I wanted to try this method. Also, you may wonder two things. Why did I not clean it yet? Well, because basically we're cleaning it as we go, and I'll clean it at the very end. And then the second thing you're probably wondering is, why is she not taking the hardware off? Well, the hardware also needs to be cleaned up, and I'll probably take the hardware off a little bit later, but I am gonna spray that right along with the rest of it because I'm hoping that this will also shine that hardware up too. All right, I've sprayed the entire dresser, and I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit while it just does what it does. It's gonna get into the surface and hopefully pull up the finish and the color of stain. This has been sitting here for about 20 minutes now. I just wanna see what's going on under here. So I'm gonna use this little detail brush along with this bigger brush and a smaller one. This one has a little bit softer bristles, so I'm not sure if that's gonna do as well as maybe these tougher ones will. We're gonna scrub and see what happens. Some places took the oven cleaner a little bit better than other places. So I'm obviously gonna need at least one more application, but before I do that application, I wanna spray it off. That way I know exactly where I need to be focusing on. Real quick, I do wanna say, usually I would not recommend spraying your furniture with a hose. It's not the best to have furniture being soaked in water, but there's a couple things and reasons why I'm able to do it with this dresser. One is because it's a solid wood and it's not going to penetrate and then expand. If you have MDF or plywood, I wouldn't even be doing the oven cleaner route anyway, but you do not want to soak that type of wood because that is going to expand and have water spots. Second, it's a warm, nice day, so this is going to dry fairly quickly, especially in the sunlight. This is probably a better project in the summer, but I was just itching so bad to do this, and like I said, we have a nice day, just had to go for it. All right, so I kind of took my scraper along some of the edges here and we're getting even more of that finish off. As you can see right here, I'm gonna show you the wood that looks like this, the redder color, is the wood that we're going for. And this over here, you can tell it's getting there, but it's just not quite penetrated all the way through. So we'll definitely need another application, like I said, but I'm gonna let this go ahead and dry overnight and then we'll come back to continue working on this project. Not only did I have to do one application of the oven cleaner, but I also needed to do a second and a third application because some of the finish wasn't coming off with just one scrub. I noticed that for the first application, I let it sit for only 10 minutes, but then in applications 2 and 3, I let it sit for longer, and it seemed that the longer I let the oven cleaner sit on the finish, the easier and quicker it came off when I was scrubbing it. I noticed when I put the second application on and let it sit a long time, it ended up cracking and bubbling up and becoming a brown color. And that made me realize that that meant that it was activated and that it was really going to come off well. So again, the longer that you leave the oven cleaner on, the easier it's going to be to scrub off in the end. So if you are using the Easy Off and you're noticing that the spray is turning colors and bubbling up, that is a good sign that you're ready to start scrubbing. All right, so now that we have got all of the finish off, I am ready to go on to the next step. And I wasn't sure if I was going to need to do this, but just because of the nature of the wood, it's pretty blotchy, especially when it's dried out. It's got some red spots, things like that. Well, I want it to be all one shade. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be bleaching the wood, but not like you might think. I've used Zinsser bleach before. It's a 2-part solution, but apparently they're discontinuing that 2-part solution. So that's kind of a bummer, but I have found another, the Barkeeper's Friend powder. So my surface is wet, which is what we want because we're going to make a little bit of a paste out of this. Well, I guess my attempt at using Barkeeper's Friend as bleach was a fail. Unfortunately, that's not the right way to go about bleaching furniture that is solid wood. I am going to try one more method to get this down to a lighter wood, and we are just going to use plain old Clorox bleach. All right, so the bleach worked, as you can see, and I did go ahead and spray it off camera and I just rinsed it all off. And now we've got one last step before we are finished with this dresser. I will be honest, it's taken a little bit longer than I assumed it would take, but the oven cleaner did work to strip off the color. Now that we are down to this beautiful wood color, the raw wood, lightened wood, I am going to do a paint wash just to make everything cohesive and make sure that it's all looking the same. So I've done a paint wash before, but this time I'm going to be using putty. Putty is from Dixie Belle. It's a little bit of a darker tan color, and I'm going to go ahead and pour some of that And then I'm gonna pour about equal parts water in there. And this is sort of acting as a stain, but it's just called a paint wash because you're really thinning out the paint so that it's basically colored water. I usually like to do one entire area before I go ahead and wipe it all back. But as you can see, when you wipe it back, you're still gonna be able to see some of that wood grain, which is exactly what we want. It's much like a stain, like I said. Go back and forth in the same direction. If you're rubbing it in circles, things like that, then you're really gonna get a weird pattern. So I just like to go from side to side, kind of following that wood grain, wiping back as much as you can. And then we've got a more cohesive look across the entire thing. Got my satin top coat here because of course we need to protect everything so that it doesn't get damaged. The satin has just a little bit of a sheen. I say this a lot, but this is truly my favorite top coat because it's right in the middle of that matte and that gloss, but it's just not too glossy for me. I'm not a huge fan of the gloss. This one is just a perfect amount. You also might be wondering why I'm only putting a top coat on and I didn't mix any of the paint color in there. The reason that I would ever mix paint into the top coat is for darker colors. So since this is a wash and it's a lighter color, it's less likely that I'm gonna be getting any streak marks. They just won't show up like they do for darker colors. So I'm not as worried about it. All right, it is time to head over to the staging wall. And are you guys ready to see this? Because I know I am. And here we are at the staging wall, and this piece is finally finished. One lesson that I always constantly talk about is patience, and I did experience needing some patience during this flip, but I also experienced another lesson that I feel like I haven't really talked about before, and that lesson is to listen. Listen to your furniture. I knew that I wanted to strip back the main finish of the piece at the beginning, but I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. You never know what's under that finish, especially when you're dealing with solid wood pieces. You don't know what kind of wood, what color the wood is. Is it consistent across the whole board? So once I got my finish stripped off, I had to go and I had to problem solve. I tried the barkeeper's friend. That didn't work like I assumed it would. So I listened to my furniture again and I knew that it needed to be all one color. So I turned to bleach and we bleached it. It got super stark white and I knew that that just wasn't quite it. It wasn't the look that I was going for on this piece. And then we washed it with putty and you guys, I think that it turned out amazing. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. This oven cleaner, it really took that finish off. And again, remember that if you're interested in trying out the oven cleaner to strip back the finish, the longer you leave it on there to sit and bubble up and change to that brown color, the better off you're gonna be when scraping it off or scrubbing it off. It took me right around 6.5 cans of Easy Off oven cleaner, the Great Value brand. That one works just the same as the Easy Off. And I feel like now knowing that the longer that you leave it on, the better it activates. I probably would have ended up using a little bit less Easy Off. So make my experiment your experiment and see if you can do it with a little bit less cans, because I think that in reality I could have probably gotten away with 3, knowing what I know now and going through that process, but it was all trial and error. This was super fun to just do something new and just think about inside of all of these nooks and crannies where, you know, you're sanding down, and that takes you hours and hours. And then inside of these bumps down here on the drawers, you're gonna have to go hand sanding each and every little bump and hump. And with the Easy Off, it was a little bit time consuming, but nowhere near as time consuming as maybe sanding it would be. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned a little bit of something new, because I know I did. And like I said, I had a ton of fun doing this new type of stripping back the finish on a furniture piece. Thank you guys so much for watching. Get subscribed down below, like this video for us, and we'll be back next week with another video on Thursday. We'll see you on the flip side.